With a domestic agenda that would be more than enough for any leader, President Obama now faces an expanding set of foreign policy problems that may well end up defining his presidency. And in our fourth story on the countdown, disagreement within the administration over the war in Afghanistan and a new urgency over what to do about Iran. Over the past 2 days, Iran successfully test-fired medium-range missiles which can reach up to 1,200 miles. That's far enough to reach Israel, U.S. military bases in the Middle East, and parts of Europe. A Revolutionary Guard commander said, quote, Iranian missiles are able to target any place that threatens Iran. This just days after the U.S. and its allies disclosed the existence of another uranium enrichment plant in Iran. A Geneva meeting between Iran and the 6 major powers, including the U.S., is set for this Thursday. And the Obama administration is working to assemble a new package of far stricter sanctions unless Iran agrees to immediate inspections of its nuclear facilities. Simultaneously, the Obama administration faces an undeniably tough choice on how to proceed in Afghanistan. Tomorrow, the president will meet in the White House Situation Room to discuss Afghanistan with General David Petraeus, General Stanley McChrystal, Defense Secretary Robert Gates, and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. General McChrystal, the U.S. commander in Afghanistan, advocates another increase in troop levels for Afghanistan. But General McChrystal has also been frank about how the strategy in Afghanistan must be significantly different than that of the past 8 years.
I think that in some areas the breadth of violence, the geographic spread of violence, places to the north and to the west, are a little more than I would have gathered. What I'm really telling people is the greatest risk we can accept is to lose the support of the people here. If the people are against us, we cannot be successful. If the people view us as occupiers and the enemy, we can't be successful, and our casualties will go up dramatically. I'm confident that I will have an absolute chance to provide my assessment and to make my recommendations.
Former Secretary of State Colin Powell was among those President Obama consulted over the weekend as he considers Afghanistan's strategy. The president also reached out to his former rival, Senator John McCain, for what was described as a brief chat. Vice President Joe Biden reportedly supports a reduced but more focused U.S. presence in the region. The political component of President Obama's decision is complicated as well, since recent public opinion polls do not support a troop increase in Afghanistan, with many Republicans eager to portray the president as weak on national security issues. Let's bring in the senior national security and intelligence correspondent for McClatchy Newspapers, Jonathan Landay. Thanks very much for your time tonight.
My pleasure.
What do the Iranian missile tests add to the tension of Thursday's meeting in Geneva?
Well, let's put it in context. The fact is that these missile tests took place as part of a regular military exercise, so they were probably scheduled anyway. The fact is that they went ahead, and they went ahead several days before these very crucial talks in Geneva. They went ahead several days after the disclosure that Iran is in fact building and has been building a second uranium enrichment plant. So certainly they don't do anything in terms of raising the prospect of any kind of agreement being reached this week in Geneva.
Now, this is not a top-level meeting in Geneva. It's foreign ministers and, in our case, Under-Secretary of State. Hillary Clinton says that the U.S. position in that meeting will be to simply say, prove it, when Iran repeats its insistence that its nuclear program is only for energy and not for weapons. How will Iran respond to that challenge?
Well, we've seen that question put to Iran for years now, and we've seen Iran respond by saying, well, you know, everything that we're doing is legal, and they're very likely to do that again. The fact is that the facility that's being constructed, at least according to U.S. intelligence officials, does not have equipment, the centrifuges in place. Those are the machines that enrich uranium, and therefore the question is, what would UN inspectors be able to see and adduce once Iran let them in, when Iran lets them in? That's the question. Iran has said it would let UN inspectors in, but when that is going to take place is a question that is going to be put to the Iranians this week in Geneva. The other question, of course, is will the Iranians be able to count on China and Russia to help them forestall any new sanctions that the United States, Britain, and France want to put on Iran?
Now, you've just returned from Afghanistan. Do you think that the situation on the ground points to an obvious choice for the president on troop levels now?
Not at all. In fact, it's a very confused situation on the ground. It's one that I don't think anybody really has a firm grip on. I mean, when I went, and I've been going to this country for quite many years, I was unaware that the fact, until I went up there, that the Taliban has now has now infiltrated up into several northern provinces of Afghanistan, and therefore the situation does not lend itself to an easy answer. If you want to put more troops, if they decide they want to put more troops in, the fact is that there are downsides to that. This current situation cannot be sustained, and in fact, if the Taliban is not stopped, the dimension of crisis that will take place in that region will be quite huge, and therefore it's not an easy thing for the president to decide.
Now, words like commitment and leadership come up a lot whenever there's an analysis of how the president should make his next move in Afghanistan, but there seems to be a knee-jerk reaction to the notion that leadership and commitment can only be expressed by increasing troop levels. How should the president deal with that if, for example, he chooses a different course, something other than a troop increase?
We'll have to wait and see, but the fact is those who are advocating increased troop levels are, for the most part, people who supported the invasion of Iraq. And it's because of the invasion of Iraq that there haven't been enough troops in Afghanistan to deal with the situation there, to have dealt with the situation when it was manageable 4 or 5 years ago. Now these very same advocates are now saying we need to put more troops in Afghanistan. Well, the fact is there's still 130,000 American troops in Iraq. The question is, where are these extra troops going to come from? If you have more troops, that means more targets, which means more violence, which means more civilian deaths, which means more opposition to the U.S. and NATO presence in Afghanistan. And therefore, it's not an easy prospect just to sit and advocate.
And finally, if he does go for more troop increase in Afghanistan, how can President Obama explain that to his country to get a majority support for that, which currently is not there?
It's going to be very difficult, and the fact is that a lot of people believe that the answer is not a military answer. The fact is that there's a lack of governance in Afghanistan. There's a lack of justice that the people of Afghanistan don't enjoy, and that the members of that government, very powerful people, warlords in that country, are able to get a level of justice that other people don't have, and that may be a way of dealing with the situation other than just pumping more military force into that country.
Jonathan Landay of McClatchy Newspapers, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.